Patrick, it's a pleasure to talk with you today.
John, nice to see you on the show again.
Patrick and I have shared the limelight, as it were, on some of the local television broadcasts here in Detroit. But the reason I wanted to talk to you today is you've really been following what's going on with tariffs. And Patrick, I mean, we've seen a lot of crazy harebrained schemes in our time, but I don't know if we've seen anything as chaotic as the way this whole tariff rollout is happening with the Trump administration.
This is a huge change. And my history, I think, like yours, goes all the way back to I remember as a kid, actually, the kind of anti-Japanese and the whole thing, like, all those foreign cars are always pronounced foreign. And the notion that somehow they were invading us. And some of that was pretty bad rhetoric. And to the credit of the Reagan administration, among others, they didn't go down the road of just turning the United States into a Britain and all the automakers into British Leyland or something like that. But the president actually coming to Detroit before the election and signaling he was going to do tariffs, which was an extraordinary thing to do for a politician. And then to roll these out on Inauguration Day, and then on February 1, and then March 26. And we started warning about it actually in November. And on Inauguration Day, we said, okay, here's the potential ways to do it. And he laid out a path. And what I'll say is by the time we get to March 26 for auto tariffs, not all those other tariffs, but for auto tariffs, you have a well-established law, TA Section 232. You have an implementation plan. You have a schedule. You have an administrative agency. So these things are happening for auto tariffs. And as anybody knows who's in the industry, it's already happening. For the other items, though, that's not the same thing. I mean, the president's been invoking a statute that actually dates all the way back to World War I. It was originally called Trading with the Enemy Act. That has some, let me say, doubts about the constitutionality. These are the so-called reciprocal tariffs. And that, I think, the word chaotic completely applies. And I've never seen anything like that.
Look, I actually agree with the president's goal of trying to get more manufacturing back to the U.S. I've even been arguing in favor of reciprocity as a bargaining tool since the 80s. So I'm kind of on board with a little bit of the program, but the way that it's been enacted and the wild variations of they're on, they're off, they're on, there's exemptions, there's this, that, and the other thing. I mean, as you know, the auto industry is essentially paralyzed right now.
Yeah, and they'll say, again, with the auto, at least we have something in writing, all right? And if you look at the reports we did in January and the ones we did in February and the ones we did in March, we keep refining it, but we're not changing order of magnitude. When they added Europe, we added Europe, but we already had a methodology and you could already look and see approximately what was going to happen. Where the paralysis comes in is this, we're still in this interregnum. If you read the March 26th proclamation we've got 25% on all the car, but what about the parts where we have to wait till May 2nd to feel to understand how exactly how it's going to be treated. Our estimates that we've been saying about the cost per car presume that the U.S. government tariffs in a manner consistent with what they say they are going to do in May. But that's not for certain. And as you know, you had manufacturers and suppliers try to get stuff across the border. They're stockpiling it, and you have stop shipment orders now where don't send it across the border because we can't figure it out. If we don't resolve that quickly, we are going to have layoffs just due to that, which would really be sad because that helps nobody.
Look, I'm not confident we're going to get any answers on components in May anyway, because as you know, the tariffs, as long as those are components coming from Canada and Mexico, the U.S. content of those components will be exempt from the tariff. But nobody knows exactly how to calculate this. And
Yeah.
the Customs and Border Patrol, which is supposed to collect these tariffs, has no system whatsoever set up to be able to do it. And nobody wants to get caught shipping something because, as you know, too, if you try to slip something in, they're just going to throw the full 25% on every vehicle. So no one wants to take that risk right now. And that's why I'm saying, I mean, the industry is essentially paralyzed. And even the White House has admitted it might even be the end of this year before it figures out how to apply the tariffs to these components coming from Canada and Mexico.
Well, I wasn't aware of that admission, but I will say that digging through some of the HTSUS, if you ever read it, it's 3,000 pages long.
No, and I'm not going to read it either. That's why I'm interviewing you.
Right. I know, but that's part of the point, is that the tariff schedule for the United States is already 3,000 pages long. Okay, so all of a sudden, if you put a new set of them on there, now you have to deal with, well, here's a transmission and there's 10 transmissions. That's a partially assembled car that has a transmission and that one just has an engine. How do we tariff these? I have a little more confidence maybe that they know how to do it. There's actually some rules for doing it. And all the AEG estimates here are based on the presumption that the U.S. is only tariffing the value added. So if it's a U.S. part that went over to Canada and comes back, we're presuming they're only tariffing the value added. I will agree with you, that is not explicit in writing, it's implied. And of course, the auto industry is a huge shipper across. They and their trucking companies and their customs agents and others, they don't want to get flagged as a smuggler. So they're being very cautious. And this is part of the danger that you and I both pointed out, that you might essentially paralyze some portion of the industry with no benefit to anybody.
Right. Yeah, you came out with a study a few weeks ago that showed that the prices of vehicles, even those assembled in the United States, are going to see substantial price hikes. Could you go through some of that?
Yeah, I mean, the Interest Economic Group folks have been working on this really since November. And we dug through for a lot of models. And let me just say, for folks that maybe have read notes about Wall Street analysts and everything, maybe they were just copying what we did, but this is not an average car. There is no average car. So like, nobody makes a Ford Toyota or like a Teslarati, whatever you call it. No, there's cars made by specific manufacturers, and we can identify them. And we looked at about 24 cars assembled in the United States, Canada, Mexico, Germany, Japan, Korea, Teslas, GM, Fords, Chryslers, Kias, Mercedes-Benz, BMWs, Jaguar Land Rovers. I think I even got one of your Defenders that I saw you in last time.
Well, I was test driving that. I wasn't. That wasn't my own one.
Well, you look good in that. There you were in an old gas guzzler, and I was in a sleek electric car.
That's right.
Totally the opposite of what happened on the stage.
Right.
But we and then we looked at the content of each of these, and we systematically went through and estimated the tariff burden. And we did that making use of what you and I just talked about. We assumed that the U.S. was only tariffing the value added. But we also said Canada's going to do what they said. They're going to have a retaliatory tariff. So will Mexico. And here's what we came up with. I'll give you it's right on the AG website. For the lowest tariff impact, we're talking Honda Civic, Honda Odyssey, Chevy Malibu, VW Jetta, Ford Explorer was one of the bigger ones in there, $2,500 to $4,500.
That's dollars. The increase in price thereof.
That right, and that is the tariff boom on the car, and the manufacturer's got to decide how much of that goes on the sticker, right? And then the dealers have to negotiate with customers, and ultimately it's people listening to the broadcast that decide how much they're going to pay, because some of those people, in my opinion, are going to say no. But that's just the low tariff impact. Let's go to medium impact. Some Jeep, Ram, and Toyota trucks, Chrysler Pacifica van, Ford Bronco Sport, $5,000 to $8,500.
Man.
And that's medium. Now we're getting to the, boy, is this really hurting category. Large SUVs. Now, Chevrolet Suburban, GMC Yukon, Cadillac Escalade.
All made in the U.S.
Assembled in the same plant in Arlington, Texas. Great vehicles, by the way. Arguably the world's best vehicle of its type. Mm-hmm. People buy them all over. I mean, they drive them in different continents because they're the best of their type. And yes, they have a lot of content from Canada and Mexico. A lot. But they're, unabashedly, they're not only American cars, they're symbols of America. Right? They're in movies in other countries. Anyways, these models, $10,000 to $12,000. Now, if you put on Ford Mach-E also, not because it's a big car, but because it's a battery, it's assembled in Mexico. Now, if you go to imported cars, I mean, I'm talking real imported, and come across the ocean. We're at 8 to 10,000 for luxury sedans, SUVs, and sports vehicles, $20,000 and more.
Patrick, this is nuts what you're saying. I mean, I agree with your numbers. I'm sure they're right.
John, you say that to all your guests? This is nuts what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying what's nuts is this is going to kill car sales.
Yeah. And we've been saying this now for 2 months. Here, I'll read it right here. We expect manufacturers to reduce the number of models sold in the United States, shift some production to the U.S., and pass almost all tariff costs on to consumers eventually. And in the short run, we think manufacturers will try to absorb some of that. They'll try to insulate their consumers. But some manufacturers, it just makes no sense to try to. I think Jaguar Land Rover came to my mind immediately. They've got some unique vehicles, but they're lower volume. They're already priced a little higher. Slap another $15,000 on it, it's very, very hard to sell. All but maybe the most exotic upscale models where somebody's willing to pay for that. But we're just going to see fewer cars. Some manufacturers are going to say, we're just not going to bring them over. And in fact, since we wrote that, we already see some announcements from some manufacturers, stop shipment. We're going to see what happens here. There's already, as you know, signs in the new car market. People rushed out to buy cars in March. Used car prices started to tick up. And I'm imagining if you look in the market for some Porsche, BMW, Mercedes, certain Lexus models, some other things that you're going to see some disruption here, where some prices are going to go up, some are going to go down. And because, I don't think all these manufacturers can afford to send those cars over here with that kind of tariff.
Right. They can't eat the cost of the tariff, not those high levels whatsoever. It seems to me maybe the industry has a couple of months here to burn through the inventory it's already got. And then sometime in June, July, that's when it's really going to hit the fan.
Yeah, our estimates that this is just from last week are for about a month, most models you're gonna be able to get them where they're on the lot, they're already there, there's inventory. I think for some high demand models, it'll already creep in. And for some of the ones where there's a big inventory, as manufacturers often use, they use events as a chance to get that inventory down. A silver lining is there's probably some vehicles out there that nobody was going to buy that now somebody's going to buy.
Right.
But I agree with you. By the time you get to June, you're not going to be able to say, oh, this is a non-tariff vehicle for very many cars on the lot. And anybody that orders a car is going to know there's got to be some tariff cost on it. And that mental cost increase is as important as whatever's on the sticker for auto buyer, because this, the huge awareness of the tariffs. And I will say like 99% of the people that I talk with immediately agree with our analysis that this raises the cost of cars. And you can guess where the other 1% all work. But yeah, I mean, you already see it with customers thinking the prices are going to go up.
Right. Patrick, you're a pretty plugged in guy. You talk to a lot of people. What's your sense of what's going to happen? And I ask that because prices going up like this, we're going to burn through the inventory of non-tariff vehicles. Car sales are going to drop probably pretty significantly.
Yeah.
Some of the brands that you mentioned, Jaguar, Land Rover, others who have zero production in the US, Porsche and the like, I mean, they're going to stop selling cars or a whole lot less. People are going to get laid off at car dealerships. Support systems for dealerships, the people who sell tools or bring lunch trucks to there are going to see their business evaporate. My biggest fear is actually on the supplier side of the automotive industry, especially with the lower tier suppliers, the 2, 3s, and 4s. What are you hearing? I mean, hopefully there's going to be some arrangement. You know, the president has talked about negotiating 90 free trade deals in the next 90 days. We know that's an impossibility. But I'm just curious, what are you hearing? What do you think is going to happen?
Unfortunately, we've been right thus far. I wish we were wrong. I mean, we warned about this in November. We talked about it in January. We had estimates in February that these are improved because we got a more definitive statement from the administration, and we added Europe and Asia, which had not been in the original and the one before. But everything's been playing out pretty much the way that I'll say we observed what the president was saying and what he wrote. We did the evaluation. I will say this. I mean, even President Trump is an elected official, and the economic cost and disruption this has in states like, let me just walk through. Number one, Michigan, the most affected state. Ohio, all those Jeeps there, a lot of Hondas all produced there, right? I mean, Honda produced so many in Ohio, and I've got Honda, ironically, is in my low tariff off in a lot of their models because there's so much U.S. content. But that's still $2,500 for a Honda buyer. $2,500 can be a deal breaker.
Right.
Even if they have enough money, $2,500 can be a deal breaker. South Carolina, Alabama, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, and I didn't even get to California because Tesla's kind of in a special category as usual. But those are job losses, and elected officials know that they will be punished for job losses and for inflation. And this is a policy that leads to job losses and price increases. So yeah. I think ultimately this gets down to whether people are really upset, a little upset, or not upset, and whether, as you said, you and most people are in support. I am in bring manufacture back. I celebrate the fact that we're making Toyotas and Hondas and Mercedes-Benz and BMWs and Kias. When I was a boy, I didn't even know what a Kia was. I'm not sure they had one, right?
They did not, right?
Right, now they're making them in the U.S., right? Nissans, and we can. I'd like to do that, much as the president liked to say. I agree with him on the importance of enforcing borders, but this is going to hurt people, in Michigan and in Illinois, Indiana, and it's going to slam people in Ontario, who don't get to vote, but have a lot of relatives and friends that do. So I think ultimately this is going to go down to are the people mad or not?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be fascinating to watch, and we're watching it every day because it almost seems to change every day.
Yeah.
But Patrick Anderson, thanks so much for sharing your insights.
John, great to talk with you again.
Do you want to see the automotive industry grow and thrive? So do we. That's why we dedicate our shows to providing the people in the industry with important data and information, and access to the people who are driving the industry forward with the guests that we bring on our shows and the interviews that we conduct. But we need your help to continue doing it. That's why I'm asking you to support Autoline with a YouTube or Patreon membership. It'll get you extra content that will be available only to members, but it will especially make sure that you and Autoline continue to drive the automotive industry forward.